Welcome back, fifth grade. As you can see, today we're going to talk about the Roman Republic government structure. And I know that there's a lot going on here, but we're really going to do a good job of breaking it down into smaller parts and kind of explain all the things that are going on this whole slide. So let's just start with the basics. First thing is, in your notebook, we are eventually going to add pretty much everything you see. Okay. Now, obviously, I don't need you guys to like draw little people necessarily and color them in, but along the way, it might be good to add a few stick figures to represent some of these groupings of people and maybe these numbers that go along with. But pretty much everything you see here is what you get, and even a little more. All right. So, first thing, somewhere on your page, you definitely want to put the title. Roman Republic is talking about the time period in Rome where they were a republic and people still voted on things. Later on, you're going to have what's known as the Roman Empire, but they're going to need an emperor for that. So it is the government structure itself, and there's obviously three different parts with all kinds of different jobs and different numbers of people. So let's get into it. Okay, the top of the government structure is known as the consuls. There were always two consuls at the top of this level. Now, they were in charge of different things like military decisions and different decisions going on in Rome, but their big jobs or most important jobs would be right in this blue area. So you're definitely going to want to add that each of these people served 1 year terms. Okay, so this person and this person could only serve as a consul for 1 year. Now, the reason behind that is because they did not want a consul to ever become more powerful than the overall group together. Okay, so they did not want the consul, either one of these guys or even both of these guys working together, to be more powerful than the other levels. So they only put them in for 1 year at a time so they would not be almost like a king. So they kind of kept their level at 1 year. What else could they do? They could also veto the other one. Now, the word veto means to get rid of or to kind of cancel out. And you could veto the other person's decision if you didn't agree with it. So basically, to get something passed, one consul would have to agree with the other. So they did have the power of veto or outvoting one another. So that's kind of their big jobs. Now, if we slide down here to the senators, there are 300 senators. So I just put a couple of guys here to represent the number 300. And here are their big ticket items. These senators actually served for life. So once you got the job as a senator, you could serve for life. So it was a lifetime appointment. Another job that these senators did was they advised the consuls. So they kind of gave ideas or gave information to these two consuls at the top. So they would advise consuls, and also they could propose or come up with ideas for laws. So if you were on the Senate, pretty much you could serve for life, you gave information and advice to the people that were at the top, and you could come up with ideas for different new laws. The group down here at the bottom, the Assembly of Centuries, it says there's 373 people in it, but as you can see, it's a pretty big group by comparison. And at different times during Rome, this thing could be bigger or smaller, but that's why I have it represented as a bigger group of people. But the Assembly was actually the largest group of the three government branches. The Assembly pretty much did some of the most important things, though. They elected the consuls, so they actually picked who these guys at the top were, and they passed laws. So even though the senators could come up with ideas for laws, the assembly actually worked together to pass them. So they are a larger group, but as you can tell, they're pretty important as far as what their main jobs are. Okay, so these are the three levels of government, and again, in these boxes are kind of their most important jobs, and you can kind of see what kind of numbers they have. Now, the big box over here with these two yeses and no and this question part, that's the big thing we need to discuss real quick, because a lot of people that know anything about U.S. government, they know that we have three branches of government. But obviously these are different for a couple of reasons. But look, they do not have a president. They do not have what's called a House of Representatives, and they also don't have what we call today a Supreme Court. So even though they have three branches, they're not exactly the same. And there's some other differences that go with this yes and this no right here. So that's what we want to talk about. And I'll be honest with you, in your notebooks, you're going to want to add more than just what I have right here in the box currently. You're going to want to add a little bit of information that we discuss here, what these things actually mean to go with the box. Okay, so how does this compare to USA government? The first thing is a yes. The yes is that they have, and we still have, what's known as checks and balances. Okay, checks and balances means that there are built-in little ways that every level of the government can keep a check on the other. Okay, no one branch of government, even still today, is more powerful than the other. They all have what's known as checks, like they can check on each other, and they balance out, right? This group might be in charge, but actually this group is the one that gives them advice, and this one is the one that actually elects them or picks them. And it goes kind of in a circular pattern like that. Okay, so that's the checks and balances. Basically, that they can kind of keep a check on one another and they balance each other's power out by having different tasks. The no is the separation of powers. Okay, in the United States today, we have still what's known as the separation of powers. And we have a couple separations of power. We have like city government, we have state government, we have federal government, so those are separate. But even within the federal government, we have separations within each branch of government. Okay, in this case, it wasn't always such. So, what does that mean? Well, that means that you could be in some of these different groups at different times, or even in some cases at the same time during your life. So, for example, you could be a senator and still be in the military, or you could be a senator and then eventually jump up for 1 year and be on the console. Or you could be somebody who works down in the assembly, but you could also be the head of a business, right? So in today's US government, you're really supposed to keep things separate so that they don't get all kind of wishy washy. But back in ancient Rome, they didn't really see the point for that. So they felt like if I want to be a senator and I still want to go be a military general, then I should be able to do that. Okay, so that's what it means about no on separation of powers. So, yes, the Romans did have that, and so do we. And no, because the Romans did not have a separation of power, which we have today. Okay, so again, if you haven't already, I would go back and I would add all this information in your own way, however you want to set it up. You don't have to make it look exactly like mine, but you definitely have to have somewhere in your notes the titles of the groups, a representation of the groups, and kind of what they did for each one of these levels. And the other thing is obviously don't forget to add the information that goes with this corner box. Okay. Now, like we've done over the last couple of days, if you all write this stuff out in a notebook, make sure you share it with me in some way, shape, or form. So you can send it to me in a picture. If you're typing this stuff out, just again share it with me to make sure that you know and I know that you've done it. But don't just send me an email or don't just post in the classroom that you looked at it. Okay, you definitely have to make sure that I know that you have the right information. Okay. So, as always, hope you guys are having a good day. Hope everybody is staying well, staying healthy, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.